H.P. Lovecraft, known to the aficionados of the occult, demonology, witchcraft, as a master storyteller, is responsible for our first selection in this museum of the frequently morbid. To you connoisseurs of the black art, you'll probably recognize it. It's a painting that tells the story of a young artist who recruits his models from odd places. And the models are very odd indeed. The painter's name, incidentally, is Pickman. The title is Pickman's Model. And where else would you see a story like this except in the Night Gallery?
Now do you believe me, Larry?
Well, I admit it does resemble a Pickman.
Resemble nothing. I'd be willing to bet on it.
But they all disappeared at the same time Pickman did. Except the 4 already hanging.
And except for this one. Look at it, Larry. Can you seriously doubt its authenticity?
Well, the signature looks real enough. Elliot, do you realize what this is worth to you? The last Pickman brought close to $100,000 at auction.
But it's in mine to sell.
But the man vanished 75 years ago. He left no known relations. If it's in your possession, it's yours to sell. Now, I could make arrangements through my gallery. How did you come by it?
I found it in here yesterday after I moved in. Larry, at the time Pickman disappeared, where was his studio?
Oh, no one knew. Somewhere in the North End. People thought that... Good Lord, Elliot, you don't suppose that...
Perfect for an artist. And certainly old enough.
How did you find this place?
Probably the same way Pickman did. Scoured the entire city for it, and probably for the same reason. He didn't have any money, did he?
Oh, not a Boston bean. He kept bread on his table giving drawing lessons to young ladies of good family. You know, Elliot, I read somewhere that the last few years before Pickman vanished, no one ever saw him without his gloves on. Oh, there are all sorts of theories. He was becoming leprous like Gauguin. He had mutilated himself like Van Gogh. Been in an accident that left his hands deformed. But you don't paint pictures like this with deformed hands, do you, Elliot?
I call it Ghoul Preparing to Die. And I brought it this afternoon not because I wish to impose my own special style of painting upon any of you, but merely to point out that if one paints what one sees, one must also be prepared to accept the consequences of such candor. Now, the consequences of my painting this picture, for example, were expulsion from the Boston Art Institute, the removal of 2 of my canvases from the Cabot Museum, and a punch in the nose from a city father who thought that he recognized the background to be St. Bartholomew's churchyard, of which he was an elder. Yes, Miss Goldsmith.
Oh, Mr. Pickman, you keep telling us to paint what we see. But where would anyone see something like that?
In my mind's eye, Horatio. Were you thinking that I spent my pre-dawn hours lurking about cemeteries, hoping to surprise ghouls at their dinner and persuading them to sit for me? And now, Miss Goldsmith, let us discover what your mind's eye sees when it looks at a vase of perfectly... Your flowers are dying, Miss Goldsmith. You neglected to add water to your vase. And what is that?
It was meant to be you.
That's the effect I have on flowers, even artificial flowers.
I'm sorry. But as I said before, you keep telling us to...
Paint what you see, and this is what you see in me.
It wasn't meant to be a cruel thing. I only meant there's a sort of power, magnetism, something in your eyes.
I quite understand, Miss Goldsmith. How fortunate that I chose painting for my profession instead of landscape gardening. Not that the demand for my services in the profession I selected has been exactly overwhelming.
You have sold some paintings.
Ah, yes. Well, just yesterday I Heard from the proprietor at Wilderman's, where I've had a canvas on consignment, that he had succeeded after 2.5 years.
View from an artist's window.
You know it?
I bought it. I was walking by the gallery and I saw the signature and I thought, that can't be our Pickman.
Yes. Not a ghost or a graveyard or a lurking shadow. A monster, violated maiden anywhere. Just housetops and chimneys and a particular pre-gambrel roof that antiquarians say no longer exists in Boston. Why did you buy it? It's not very good.
You painted what you saw.
Ah. But not with the eyes of who was looking.
Excuse me?
To paint what you actually see, you must first discover who you actually are. The painting you bought predates my own self-discovery, and therefore is no more an authentic Pickman than this, after my meddling with it, remains an authentic goldsmith.
What is it?
An object lesson. Beware of self-portraits, ladies. At the least, you may lose an ear. While at the worst, you run the danger of revealing your soul. And now, I think you have enriched your existences sufficiently for this day. We'll meet again next Wednesday and strive for even greater heights of artistic achievement. Good afternoon, ladies. Mrs. DeWitt.
Mr. Pickman, it was the impression of the Institute that you were instructing our young ladies in the principles of painting from life, in the transferring to canvas of recognizable shapes and figures.
Quite correct, Mrs. DeWitt.
And you employ this as an example?
Oh, a modest one.
And one better suited, I'm afraid, ladies, to a less genteel conservatory.
You are telling me that my services are no longer, etc., etc.?
Despite your ready wit and bohemian elan, Mr. Pickman, some of our parents do not consider you a proper influence on their daughters. And now that I've seen this specimen of your work, I quite agree with them. The Institute will, of course, pay you to the end of the month, but, well, I'm sure you understand.
She had no right to do that. You're a great artist.
And you, Miss Goldsmith, had no right to eavesdrop.
I couldn't help
Or do
it.
you feel because you come from a fine old Back Bay family you can do anything you damn well please?
Certainly not.
Nor do I, Miss Goldsmith. Nor do I.
To be passing by.
In Cadbury Lane. And stooping to tie your shoelace, you glimpsed me through the window?
Since you obviously insist on savoring the admission, yes, I followed you.
Indeed. Might I ask why?
After the incident at the Art Institute, I thought you might need some sympathetic company.
You were in error, Miss Goldsmith. I have never felt the need for human companionship.
Then I shall make it my project to awaken those feelings in you.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Inviting myself to tea.
No.
Oh, I know that's a very brash and unladylike thing to do, but as you so accurately charged Mr. Pickman, when you come from a rich old Back Bay family, you can be brash and unladylike. Will you order another cup, or shall I, Mr. Pickman?
Why do you picture me as wilting flowers?
As you said, Do not attempt to paint a self-portrait. It reveals the soul.
But I was to be the face.
And I was the flowers.
Miss Goldsmith, I think I should warn you.
Why did you sketch in hideous features and say they were your soul?
I paint what I see.
And you see your soul as a beast. You see falsely when you look inwards, Mr. Pickman.
Or perhaps you do, when you look outward, Miss Goldsmith. And now, if you'll forgive my shortcomings as a host, I have pictures to paint, and while the light remains,
May
must
I
get
come?
back to... What?
To your studio.
That's impossible. No one comes to my studio. No one has ever come to my studio.
Oh, yes, I've heard that often. No one in all of Boston knows where it is. Why, Mr. Pickman? What are the secrets that only the North Light knows?
I believe that an artist's work is his own, exclusively his own. Until it's completed, only then does the world take it from him.
And when will it be completed, this work of yours that has occupied you for so long? This series of canvases? I heard about it at the Art Institute.
Sometimes I drink. And when I drink, sometimes I say too much.
A sequence of paintings so horrible that they would turn a man...
Turn a man to stone, yes.
Oh. Then it's true. Tell me all about them.
No, Miss Goldsmith. It would chill your blood.
I'll run the risk.
There is a legend. There is a legend that tells of an eldritch race, more foul and loathsome than the putrid slime that clings to the walls of hell. Twisted creatures, half man, half beast, who move with the rustling sound of predatory rats, carrying with them the stench of the charnel house. Wretched mutations who live deep beneath the earth in dark tunnels, surfacing in the dead of night and returning before dawn to practice their unspeakable acts and breed their filthy spawn until the day arrives when their swollen numbers will finally emerge and ravish the earth like a noxious plague.
You said it was only a legend.
Be sure, Miss Goldsmith. But a legend to excite the genius of a Bosch, a Bruegel, a Poe. And one that I am driven to paint. And now, if you'll forgive me, I've stayed too long. I must go.
Let me see your paintings.
That is completely impossible, Miss Goldsmith. Excuse me.
Richard!
Richard.
Haven't you guessed? Don't you know how I feel about you?
You must not. No. I forbid it.
You can't. Where my heart is concerned, I am God.
And I grieve for you, Miss Goldsmith, for investing that heart in such a bankrupt enterprise.
Old part of town. Oldest there is, most likely. North End. Couldn't be any place else. But no place you'll find in any of your city maps, my child. Can be assured of that. And, definitely not a place for the squeamish.
What do you mean?
The North End's always enjoyed a rather unsavory reputation. Ladies of the evening. Muggings. Opium traffic, that sort of thing. And then there was that persistent old wives' tale.
Yes.
Oh, something about a breed of creatures, human, and yet not quite human either, supposed to have lived in that part of the city. Oh, years ago, 100 years at least. And they dug tunnels all through the area, tunnels under the earth, linking them with the burial grounds and with the sea, from whence, allegedly, they originally came.
Surely, Uncle George, you don't subscribe to any of these things.
I? Huh, not on your life, child. Though, I can recall when several bodies disappeared from St. Bartholomew's Cemetery a short while back, there were those who insisted it was the handiwork of these creatures come to pay us a return visit.
Wretched mutations who live deep beneath the earth in dark tunnels, surfacing in the dead of night, returning before dawn to practice their unspeakable acts.
Did anyone ever try to prove these creatures really existed?
Oh, yeah. To some, it became a fanatical obsession. Particularly those whose womenfolk had disappeared in the dead of night. They believed these creatures had carried them off to their subterranean dwellings for purposes of procreation. But if you ask me, they disappeared more from boredom than from beast.
Then no one ever actually claimed to have seen them.
No. Traps failed, as did every attempt to smoke them out. They finally ended up sealing off every underground opening they could find and praying that they'd found them all. Richard Upton Pickman. Well, if that's the view from his studio, his outlook on life can't be particularly cheery.
Richard? Richard, you forgot your painting. Richard? 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 I brought your painting.
What are you doing here? How did you find this place?
You left me a perfect map of the neighborhood. The painting I bought. I brought this for you. You left it in the tea room.
All right. You performed your errand. Now you must go.
Richard.
I tell you, you must go this instant. I have work to do.
Can't I stay and watch?
Dear God. Miss Goldsmith.
Please. Leave me a little of my pride, for heaven's sakes. I pour out my heart to you. I hunt you down through the filthiest alleys in the world. I do everything but throw myself at your feet and
No, Mavis, please. I'm the one to kneel to throw myself at your feet, but only to beg you, to plead with you to leave here now. At once, forever. Never try to see me again. Never hear my... Oh, my God, it's too late.
What?
Wait here. Do not leave this room.
Richard!
Did you not hear me when I said I had no need of human company? And could you not understand why?
It became a fanatical obsession, especially those whose womenfolk had disappeared in the dead of night. They believed that these creatures had carried them off to their subterranean dwellings for purposes of procreation.
You hear me? Get back to the cellar where you belong. I've promised it 1,000 times. I'll do it yet. Pick up that well. Leave you to live out your obscene lives inside your cursed tunnels forever. Get back down!
It's enough to curdle your blood.
Did you send for the bricklayers?
I did. They should be here in 10 minutes. If they can locate this rabbit warren.
Then help me, please.
Yeah. Must have been insane.
No. He painted what he saw. And what he was.
You say you searched. You mind if I do, too?
Oh, of course not. Locating the 10 lost paintings of Richard Upton Pickman's a lot more important than who does the finding. We'll start up here at the top of the house and work our way down to the basement.
What's this thing?
Can't imagine. I noticed it when I moved in. It means nothing to me. A sewer, do you suppose?
In a cellar? This thing's hollow. You know what I think, Elliot? I think we ought to open this thing up.
Why? What do you think we'll find?
Well, at the worst, nothing. At the best, those missing canvases.
Why would they be in there?
If for no other reason that they're not anywhere else.
Well, if you think there's anything in it, let's see. Feeling muscular?
No.
I hope we don't find anything besides the paintings.
What's that supposed to mean?
Remember, Pickman's canvases weren't the only thing that disappeared. Pickman did, too.
To the shoppers, the hunters, the sifters and the winnowers, to those of you who comprise that vast fraternity of picture watchers, we offer you this salon of the special and the supernatural. Painting number 1. It has to do with death. Usually the last chapter in every man's book of life. The ashes and the dust, the tomb, and the engraving on the stone. Death, the finale. But our first painting offers up a tale with the final curtain not quite the final curtain. There's an epilogue. We offer you now a little item called Cool Air. Tonight's first painting in the night gallery.
Once a year, I visit his grave, a ritual born of habit, and, I suppose, some fleeting little ghost of obligation. Fleeting, for it was over 50 years ago that I knew him, and there are times when I find it difficult to remember his face or the sound of his voice. And the circumstances are indistinct around the edges, like an aging photograph, clouding and yellowing with the years. But I remember the cool air. I remember it with a special horror, an icy draft that still whistles across half a century, like a mournful dirge, a fitting kind of music to this man.
Yes?
Is there a Professor Munoz here?
Who's asking?
Howard, Agatha Howard.
He's expecting you?
Well, no, not exactly.
Well, not exactly isn't good enough for me, sister. The doctor don't like visitors.
Oh, no, I'm sure he'd want to see me. He and my father were acquaintances. Just tell him Professor Howard, from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
The Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Tell him yourself, sister. I get enough getting myself upstairs without dragging the Massachusetts Institute of Technology with me. This way. Oh. I don't know why I have to climb the stairs all day long in this heat. Up and down, up and down. That's all I do. Oh. It's right up here. Smell that?
Yes.
Ammonia. I never could understand foreigners, and this one I can understand least. He's got a refrigeration machine in there, uses ammonia. Well, the darn thing leaks half the time, and that machine keeps the whole house awake. If he wasn't paying me so much rent, and paying it as promptly as he does, well, he wouldn't be occupying 3 of my rooms.
Could you knock?
Don't be so impatient, sister. I have a feeling you'll be wanting to leave soon.
What do you mean?
You'll see. Cold as a grave, like a tomb. You have a visitor, Doctor. Says you know her father.
Yes?
I'm Professor Walter Howard's daughter, Doctor.
From MIT. Please, come in. Thank you very much, Mrs. Gibbons.
House rules, Doctor. When the young lady comes visiting, the door stays open.
Applicable when it is young men that the young ladies are visiting. Thank you.
It's delightfully cool in here, Doctor.
Well, I keep a refrigerating machine on most of the time. Please sit down, Miss Howard.
Thank you.
I have heard that your father...
Yes, last summer, was a sudden heart attack.
I'm deeply sorry. He was an exceptionally astute man. We'd had much correspondence together.
Yes, I'm aware of that. Well, as a matter of fact, a few weeks ago, I was sorting out some of his papers. Several universities have requested that I donate them. Well, anyway, I was trying to isolate some of the personal things. And that's when I came across your letters. The last one was dated about a year ago.
Just about the time I first arrived from Spain.
Well, I didn't know whether or not you'd heard about his death. So I took the liberty of calling.
So you read all the correspondence between us?
Yes, I found them fascinating. You and my father shared something in common. You both refused to accept the finality of death.
Your father was doing cellular research, Miss Howard. The rejuvenation of organs. I'm afraid my own approach took the research a step further, perhaps into the mystic.
Yes, so you said in your letters something about the human will staving off death. Coming from such a warm climate, Doctor, it's odd how you prefer the cold.
Did I say I preferred it?
Well, it would seem that you do. The temperature in here must be...
Let us say, then, that I prefer it to death, Miss Howard. My illness was of a rare form. It left me very vulnerable. I can't survive temperatures over 55 degrees, Miss Howard. It's as simple as that. I know how uncomfortable you must feel. But I do thank you for coming.
Well, I hope that I'll have a chance to talk to you again. Perhaps we could have dinner together.
That would be very enjoyable for me, Miss Howard. But unfortunately, I don't leave my rooms here.
Ever?
Ever. I'm afraid I'm imprisoned. A most comfortable penitentiary with my books, my paintings, my research. But a solitary confinement at best.
Well, then you'll have to invite me for dinner here.
Here? That would be a great pleasure for me.
Well, perhaps I should ask. Are you married?
Well, I'm a widower, Miss Howard. My wife, she died a year after I was taken ill.
She was lovely.
She was indeed. Please. Please, call on me again whenever you are free, Miss Howard. I would very much like to see you. And when you come, I'll supply a coat and gloves for you for the duration of your visit here.
I'll bring my own. I look forward to it. Until next time, Doctor.
Thank you. Forgive me, Miss Howard. But like the room, my touch is uncomfortably cold.
But I am sure, Doctor, like the man, I will find it warm.
You are very dear, Miss Howard.
Lips and touch, both cold beyond description. And yet the man was warm, sensitive, and I found myself instinctively liking him, and somehow moved by him, moved by his loneliness, his isolation. And I carried with me an impression of a man full of all the fiery passion peculiar to vibrant men, but enclosed by walls of ice. I know how fragile is life and how temporal, but in the case of Dr. Munoz, it seemed to be measured in the piston strokes of a small engine. And those walls of ice, did they imprison him, or did they protect him from death waiting impatiently outside?
And now El Greco. He was the mystic of the Spanish painters. But his people bore no relationship to reality. On the other hand, Velázquez, a court painter to Philip IV, was much more rooted to reality. Or just look at his painting of the Infantas. But towering over both of them, Agatha, must be Goya. Goya to me es el corazón de España, the heart of Spain. But even more than that, brush and palette of man. You look, for example, at the May 3rd execution, 1808. This was all the horror of war put on canvas. The brutality, the slaughter, the damnation.
I went there frequently after our first meeting, and I could sit by the hour listening to him. He talked of art, of sculpture, of Spanish history. It was as if all the richness of his knowledge, all the passion of man had been stored up, and by my presence, I had released it. It came out in a torrent, and I found myself getting more and more accustomed to the cold.
So, as is so often the case, necessity becomes the mother of invention. And survival, you might say, the father of desperation.
We cling to life, don't we?
And why not? The alternative? A life after? How can we be sure?
What about reincarnation?
False charm does it to come back as a donkey or a rooster or a duck. No, Agatha. This is the life that counts. It's the only one that has substance. It's the only one we can be sure of. And that is why we clutch at it so jealously and so selfishly. Because we know it to be brief and very precarious. My wife, she believed as I did, that you could forestall death, defeated by strength of will.
She must have had an infinite faith.
Not quite infinite, I'm afraid. She committed suicide a year after my illness, which perhaps isn't as inconsistent as it sounds. Her faith in man had to do with her ability to survive, and her own free will to reject or accept death as she saw fit. And there have been times recently when I have found myself wondering.
It was a week later, a week smothered in an insufferable heat. I'd come into town unexpectedly, and I'd brought Dr. Munoz a little gift.
Juan? Juan, I brought a surprise for you. You mentioned not being able to get real Spanish olive oil.
Forgive me, Agatha. I'm not feeling well this evening.
Oh, is there anything I can do? Juan, do you need anything? Juan, I'm staying at the Hotel Astor. Call me if you need me.
Did you see him?
No. No, he wasn't feeling well.
When did you see him last?
Last week. Why?
Well, yesterday afternoon there was a repairman up there. His machine was on the brink again. Well, that repairman came down the stairs 4 at a time and nearly took the door with him when he went.
I don't understand.
He was scared. I've never seen any man that scared in all my life.
Of what?
That's what I'd like to know. But it had something to do with the doctor.
I'm sure you're exaggerating this, Mrs. Gibbons.
Oh, am I? Well, try telling that to the repairman.
Well, it seems like we're going to have a storm. Well, maybe it'll break this terrible heat spell.
And what a storm. That part of the nightmare I shall never forget. For the thunder seemed like some massive earthquake. I was in my hotel room, and another sound intruded, a new note to the orchestrated terror of that night.
Yes?
Agatha, please come immediately.
Juan? What is it, Juan?
I need you, please. You must hurry.
Juan? Juan?
Who is it?
Agatha Howard, please let me in.
Thank God you come. He's been pounding on that fool machine half the night.
Can't you turn the lights on?
No, the storm has shut off the electricity. See? Between that and the thunder, it's one of the whole house isn't awake.
Juan?
Agatha, the piston on the pump is stuck. Find me a mechanic. I must get it started again.
Juan, let me in first. I must talk to you. What's happening?
I told you. The machine has stopped. The temperature is rising. No! You mustn't touch me. You mustn't even look at me. Agatha, please. Find me a mechanic. I've been phoning half the night. No one will come up at this hour.
Oh, well, surely one in the morning.
In the morning, it'll be too late. Now, do you understand? That engine must be fixed tonight.
I'll do what I can.
Why is he hammering like that? What's the matter with him?
Where can I find a mechanic?
At 3 o'clock in the morning?
Is there anyone in the building?
Well, there's Charlie Crawley down here on the first floor. He works in the garage. But he won't take time if you wait. He...
Mr. Crawley? Mr. Crawley?
Why don't the lights work? Where's that flashlight?
In the drawer.
All right. What is it?
Mr. Crowley, it's Dr. Munoz, just above you. He needs help.
Help? What kind of help?
He has a gasoline engine, a refrigeration machine, and it's stopped.
Well, what am I supposed to do about it?
Please, just take a look at it. He must get it started again.
Lady, I don't know whether you know it or not, but it must be near dawn, and I gotta get up at 7 o'clock as it is.
Oh, please!
Who is it, Charlie?
Oh, it's some friend of Dr. Munoz.
Tell him to make him stop that racket.
Please, just take a look at it.
All right, lady, all right. Wait till I get some tools. Wait a minute. Everybody wants something this hour of the morning. Go ahead. With Dr. Munoz. I don't know what time it is. I gotta get up.
It's open.
What smells?
It's incense. It's over there. Agatha, please. I think it best that you leave immediately.
I can't do anything. That pump arm is shot.
Well, can you get one?
Not at this hour. You just have to make do until the supply house opens.
Ice. Can you get me ice?
Mister, the only thing I'm going to get now is some sleep.
Agatha, please. I must have ice. A lot of it. Then in the morning I can have the machine repaired.
I'll see to it, Juan. Right away.
That's the last of it, Doc. Want me to bring it in there?
No. Just leave. I'll get it myself.
Where do you want the bill?
Put it on the table.
Excuse me, miss. Are you related to him? Well, I was just wondering. He's locked himself up in that bathroom with like 300 pounds of ice in there. And I was just wondering what the deal was. I mean, what's a guy use that much ice for?
I'm afraid I wouldn't know. Juan, are you all right?
I'm afraid the ice isn't working anymore. It's getting warmer. The tissues can't last.
Juan, I just spoke to the supply house. They have to send down to the battery for a new pump arm, but the man assured me they could have it here within an hour and a half.
Well, no more than 15 minutes, which still come too late.
Oh, Juan, please, let me fetch a doctor.
Agatha, I am a doctor. Physician, heal thyself. Isn't that the phrase?
Juan, please. Please, Juan, come out. Oh, Juan, I must see you.
You must see me. I think that very unwise. I've changed considerably in the past few hours. You remember what I was telling you about the will and the nerves?
how we could delay death even after the organs ceased to work. It was an interesting theory, but unfortunately only a theory. You see, dear Agatha, it can't keep up indefinitely. There is a gradual deterioration of the organs. However you preserve the outer shell, the organs, they simply don't work again. The best I could hope for was for a kind of artificial preservation.
What? What, please?
Let me finish. I mentioned my wife's suicide. Do you understand now why life became so unbearable for her?
No, Juan, I don't understand. I only know that I must help you. Juan, you're not going to die, and I won't let you.
You don't understand, dear Agatha. My wife committed suicide because she couldn't stand living with a corpse. You see, my darling, I died that time 10 years ago.
Juan, please! Juan! Oh, Juan!
Yes, each year I visit his grave, and I wonder if I'm mourning something that was or something that might have been, but I won't ponder the question. What might have been embraces elements of horror that could drive me insane. And as always, I find any icy draft of wind unbearable. It conjures up images, memories, remembrances of the nightmare. It's a funeral dirge that sings of death, and so I'll leave